And I knew it could end up a whole different way if I were to try to fight it. Who knows? I don't want to incriminate anybody or say anything bad, but it's the reality of that encounter shouldn't be a scary one.
The sharp division of people into two main groups.
It's not that they discriminate, it's just that they don't hire us.
The plantation system did not entirely disappear.
You must make friends among your own kind.
This is your police department in review.
If a police officer breaks the law, that police officer must be held accountable.
My first memory of systematic racism that I actually understood, in a sense, was when I got to college. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. I guess always surrounded by my community, surrounded by people that look like me and act like me, and things of that nature. Once I got to my college, AMPA, it was a predominantly white campus, small school, middle of nowhere. I have no family, no friends. I just kind of wanted a different environment. And on campus, we would see different things happen. People saying certain things, joking around in the locker room, but it's a joke, so you kind of always ignored it. It wasn't until it was a lot of events that was happening on campus, from people spray painting the N-word on people's doors, professors singling out students to speak out on the race and constantly target certain students. So just a lot of things going on. And I saw the way my school reacted. It was very defending. It was very after the cause. It was never in the sense of we have to get in front of this and make sure our students feel safe and all of our students feel safe. And seeing that, and we had a group of students that came together. We wanted to do it the correct way. We had an organization, and we came together to the school. We protested, said, hey, these are things that we have seen on campus. This is what we want to change, and this is the voices who are saying it. We believe this is our experiences. Please believe us. And the school kind of took it and kind of pushed it away. Oh, you want to change this? Sure, we'll do this later. Or we have to do this first. Or no, we'll talk about this later. It's not comfortable, this and that. And it took us storming the cafeteria and grabbing everybody's attention and screaming, and not something we necessarily wanted to do, but that was the only way to make sure our voices being heard, to not just the staff members and admin, but also the students. The rest of the students that kind of hide themselves away from the reality of the minority students on campus. And seeing that and seeing the way they kind of push things away and wanted to cover stuff when the news department was coming to the school and things that, and the questions that was being, and the kind of answers was kind of given to us that wasn't really solving anything. And I start to see it, I'm like, okay, this is what it is. Like, it's the school, it's the organization protecting themselves instead of protecting these students. And so understanding that the students need to be protected, students need to be guided, and they need to be there and create a fortress for the students instead of allowing these type of things to happen on campus. And they realize it's happening, and nothing's being done about it. So that's kind of the first time I really understood it, and I was able to actually break it down, understand that, okay, it's not just this person calling me the N-word or this person looking at me the wrong way. This is an institution that I'm paying to go to, that we're all paying to go to, that's having students tell them about the experience and having it be ignored. Trying to get everybody's attention of those who control, again, those who are in power, is super important. It was very important for us because with our little voices, it's so easy to discourage and to dismiss what we're saying. So unless you have the voice, unless you have the attention of those who can actually change things, who make the decisions, who are the money behind everything, not much things are gonna change. Because people are gonna listen to you, say, oh, hey, he's mad about this, or he saw this and he saw that, and by tomorrow it's gone. Those who are empowered, the professors, the teachers, organizations, the institutions, are the ones who can actually control the change so the next group of students don't have to experience that. So that was our goal, and that made me feel, when we was doing it, it made me feel so empowering that we actually have a group of people that had similar experiences that was willing to come together and sacrifice. Our names are out there. Our pictures were out there. We was in front of the protest. We was willing to put ourselves out there because we knew our truth. We knew the experiences that we was going through, and that felt good to go through that. But again, we had to get the attention of those in power. My experience, again, super translates to what we're going through now overall as a country, because it just exemplifies the fact that in order to get somebody's attention, you have to make them uncomfortable. In a situation like systematic racism, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. We don't want to have the conversations, especially if we're not being impacted on a daily basis. You kind of want to push it to the side and live in your own little bubble in your world. Unless you get the attention of those in power, those who make the laws, who make the rules, and who are supposed to be, protect you, you will never be able to make that significant change because the vast majority of the population will still ignore you. Right now, we see the protests going on, and even some of the looting, some not condoned, But at a certain point, people who are frustrated, who are angry, who are tired of asking and begging are gonna do whatever it takes to get your attention. And that's what we see now. And that's clearly, the last couple of weeks, we've seen it going into the world. And it's good to see, slowly but surely, people starting to get on board. You start to see people calling out different things. Institutions are letting them know we're behind this, we're supporting you. And that feels so good to like, finally, somebody hears me. And it's great. I'm looking forward to see where it goes. We have to continue this momentum, but it's definitely, it's a good feeling. I think overall, the cycle of just getting the attention of people in power and having it kind of being dismissed after a couple weeks is something I've personally seen over in this country for the last 10 years. For everything from when the Trayvon Martin situation happened to Eric Garner, and just the same situation, protesting the same thing. People are marching saying the same thing, signing the same petitions, and a month later, nothing happens. 3 days later, we see the same killing happen again. And people still asking, oh, why are you protesting? This is why. Because no matter how many times we keep protesting, it keeps happening. Let me know that whoever's in power, whoever making these changes, who are making these laws that are giving all these things power, isn't being changed. Nothing's being changed. So seeing that overall it's hurtful, it's disappointing, it's painful, because you're constantly putting yourself out there, you're constantly putting your emotions and your feelings out there, only to have it being dismissed over and over again. And when it happens again, it's like, oh, it happened for the first time. No, it hasn't. This isn't the first time it's happened. This is our reality for decades. We have generations of people who will continue to tell us the same thing. And we're seeing it in my generation. Last thing I want is the next generation to see the same thing. I don't want my future kids or whoever it is have to keep dealing, keep protesting the same thing. So overall as a country, we've been in this cycle for like so long. And I think one of the only positives of this pandemic is the fact that everybody's home in a sense, so everybody's attention is on it. I like to continue to put myself out there, and the people I'm with, and my friends and my family, and those who support this, who support the change in our community. We have to keep doing it because it has to be done. The generations before us allow us to have the privilege to do this. The privilege for me to be here today, to be able to walk and talk the street and feel okay and be around people that look like me. Those are because of the works of the people in the past. That's the generations that have been marching, that was spray painted, that was being sprayed with hose, that couldn't sit at the dining table to talk, that had different bathrooms. Those people paved the way for us now. So it's only right for me to continue that same cycle and continue to fight for it, because if we don't, who else will? I don't want to be 50 years old and then my kids are coming to me saying this is happening and I didn't do anything about it when I knew what was going on. I want to be able to know that our next generations are having a better future and we're doing at least something about it, rather than it being, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 80 years old and I'm seeing the same thing over and over and I'm wondering what happened. Somebody has to get involved. We have to continue to put ourselves out there because that's the only way change will happen. Actually, about maybe a year and a half ago, right 10 minutes away from here, in Steelton, I was going on a first date with a girl. First time meeting each other. I was kind of confused about where I was going as far as the area. The GPS was kind of acting up, and I called her and said, hey, I'm lost. This is where I'm at. She told me, wait, park on the side of the street, next to some trees, so I'm not for nobody's house. Just park there, I'll wait, I'll walk to you. Great. Turn my car off, I'm sitting on my phone, relaxing, scrolling through Instagram, and 2 minutes later, I see lights behind me. I'm like, okay, here we go. I stopped, do the usual, hands on top of the wheel, music off and everything, trying to follow rules and just trying to survive, just don't want any problems during this encounter. The officers came to me and said, hey, yeah, we got a tip about a suspected drug transaction going on here, the car and you yourself fit the description. And I just kept asking the officer, so I've been here for probably less than 10 minutes. I haven't talked to anybody. Nobody saw me. I've been sitting here in the car waiting for somebody. Yeah, blah, blah, this is the tip that we got. Is this your car? They kept asking me about my car. Is this yours? It looks new. I'm like, yeah, it's new. I bought it because I worked for it. Don't question something that I have just because you don't imagine me having that car. And the questions continue. The girl finally, showed up, and again, she's arguing with me too, like, hey, this is not okay. Like, what are you guys doing? He's here, he's waiting for me. There's nothing going on. You have the wrong person. This is not okay. And they kept insisting, we need to search the vehicles to make sure we have peace of mind. So, we can tell the person who tipped us that, we were sure, we checked everything out. So on that end, I was trying to make it sound good. In my mind, I know first, you shouldn't have the right to search my car under no circumstances unless you have probable cause. And again, in that moment, I was still in fear. It was still, I just want to get the situation over with. you want to search my car? Go ahead and search my car. I hated every second of it, but I knew I had to let them do it just to try to get things over quickly. They searched my car, they found nothing, and they just left. And the entire time, I was trying to go on the dates. I'm trying to change the narrative, trying to get my mind correctly. But when I got home and I just kind of sat back and thought about it, it was scary because I know in that moment why they was trying to search my car and I was being questioned about where I am and how did I get this car in my name, it's my correct ID. I'm like, why? For what reason? I was doing nothing wrong. I spoke to you man to man. You asked me questions, I answered them fully with no hesitation, no issues or anything like that. But it's just that easy to fit the profile. It's that easy that you can be relaxed in the car, but because the car is too nice and you're a black man written there, and some neighbors say they saw a drug transaction going on. When I have no encounters with anybody driving by, this is not my neighborhood, I have no friends here, and that happened. And I knew it could end up a whole different way. If I were to try to fight it, who knows? I don't want to incriminate anybody or say anything bad, but it's the reality of that encounter shouldn't be a scary one. It shouldn't have to feel like, okay, let me just put my head down and just hope for the best. It was scary. It's something I've kind of had to bury that memory away because I just know the way that made me feel on the inside, like just another person, just doesn't matter. They don't care about your rights or what's going on. It's just you fit the description and that's it. It was definitely felt violated. It was intrusion. It was invasion of my privacy. And it was bad because it hurt, and actually it really hurts. But I told a few of my friends about it. I couldn't tell my mom about that. I didn't want her thinking, my mom's a very religious person. She would pray for hours. I didn't want to put that pressure on her. I don't want to say this is what I experienced, because I know what she would tell me. Come home. I didn't want that being around my bubble, and that hurt. And I knew the way it made me feel, and I know there's only so many things that I can say in that moment. I just did everything I could to try to get out and just try to make sure I got home at night. It was just a good feeling to go home, to just kind of relax a little bit. But it was a scary, scary moment. It's traumatic. And it's something I'll always remember. And ever since then, I've had other encounters with police officers some that went okay, others kind of side eye, you just kind of shut up and just stay focused and try your best to not move any way possible. And it hurts, and it's one of the stories, I guess. I have friends that have done this, that have had similar situations happen, who have been searched, who has been punched and beat up, and I've had friends that have told me this, and from places that they've lived, and it just sucks because you keep hearing the same thing over and over in different places. It's not just here in Baltimore. It's the same thing in Florida, same thing in Atlanta. I have friends from Philly and Tampa Bay. Same thing. We all have the same experience, and that's sad that we have to experience that. That's our introduction to law enforcement, and that changes the way you view things. When you experience that, that's not your reality. Oh, this is what everybody's talking about. Oh, and once that happens, it's just not something you can ever forget. And I've actually talked to a few of my friends, and for a while I had a friend that told me that he never wants to have kids because he doesn't want to bring them to this world, and I never really understood that until last couple of years when I started to really understand the world around me, and I was questioning myself, even recently thinking about it, do I really want to have kids in this world? Do I want to have that conversation with my 8-year-old, with my 6-year-old, and showing them the truth and reality of the world that they live in? And it's scary because a part of me wants to say no. I don't want that. I'm still scared. I don't want them to even be worse because now I don't want to put them in a situation where they feel helpless. It's scary to think about. It's definitely scary to think about because that's our next generation. There's no preventing that. And you want to build a world and provide a world where they have the same opportunities as everybody else. They're treated the same way as everybody else. You can show them that love and kind of let a kid be a kid. I sadly wasn't able to be a kid for long because in reality, it just didn't happen. About 14, 15 years old, I had to realize the realities of the world. And early on, I started to understand that, and it changed the way I am. I always feel like I'm a 40-year-old man just because my thought process has always been, you're an adult since you was a kid. I didn't have a lot of time to grow up and play around and kind of let things slide. I had to kind of assume that adult role because that was just my reality. There was no hiding from it anymore. My mom to this day, don't leave your house without your wallet. Have your ID on you. Because I left my house once without ID, almost got caught up in something stupid. And since then, I always had my wallet on me at all times, just because she said, don't ever leave the house without your ID. Just the little things, and I know I don't want to have that conversation with my next kid or my daughter or my son and just say, don't trust them. I feel that's a terrible feeling because you shouldn't have to say that. I shouldn't have to say, be careful when you do this or be careful when you go here because blah, blah, blah may happen. I don't want to scare them because they're still kids. And I think that's the reason why we have to continue to do the work that we're doing and continue to be out here and protesting and making our voice heard and asking for change and begging for change and demanding change so our next generation don't have to. Being in college, being on a football team, I played football in college, I ran track for a little bit, so I got a chance to be in the locker rooms and talk and have conversations with people. We'll go out to parties, and just the freedom that they have, again, people who are non-black in the sense what I'm talking about here, the freedom of expression and freedom of worry is something I only can imagine having. I'll go to a party and cops are outside, and I can tell the white kids, whatever, we're good. And I can look at all my friends doing nothing wrong, just doing the same thing at a party. It's tense, it's fear, okay, we gotta go. I don't wanna be here when they come in. Nothing's being done, but you can see that different world of our experiences dealing with cops in the black community compared to everybody else is not the same. Or being able to go to your friend's house and say, oh, you got a pool in the backyard, you can do this and go out with your friends, family, you can go spend some time with your family and your friends and go have sleepovers. That wasn't my reality growing up because we had to be sheltered and be protected because you never know what can happen. I didn't get a chance to go out a lot because the way we lived and places that we had and the kind of, the class that we were in, it was protect yourself and just try to get out. Compared to everybody else, and I'm talking to my friends and it's, oh yeah, I can do whatever I want. My parents are gone, I can do this. Or you get pulled over by the cop is, oh, I'll talk to them, don't worry about it. It's confidence. And on my end, people that look like me, it's fear. Again, it's the realities of our world, and I'm hoping that this week is not something I have to keep dealing with, but it's been there. The first thing with education I think we need to change is what we're actually teaching kids. Again, I'm 20, I'm about to be 24. I never learned about taxes in school, never learned about real estate in school, never learned about business in school. All those things I learned on my own, studying afterwards. And it's sad that we're creating a society of kids and generations of kids who don't know anything about this stuff, which is all it's about when you're an adult. You gotta pay taxes, you gotta worry about where you live and shelter and providing, learn about budgets and things of that nature. A lot of my friends and family and places that we grew up in, we didn't have that. It wasn't that knowledge. Even when I got to college, we barely talked about taxes. We barely talked about the importance of life insurance or health insurance or things like the things that are important in society. We don't talk about them. We allow kids, figure it out. And you're coming from a community, when people like me are coming from certain communities that their parents didn't get the knowledge, and we don't get the knowledge from school, where the hell are we gonna get it from? Somebody's gotta teach us. And it's so easy to fall into the wrong group of friends or wrong group of people when you don't have the knowledge either way. So we have to fight for ourselves to go get that knowledge, to go make sure it's correct and learn how the things, just learn and fly. And that sucks because now you kind of learn from behind the 8 ball. You're behind already. You gotta catch up to everybody else and the knowledge that they already have. So that's definitely the first thing, is teach them things that actually matter. Teach them things they're gonna encounter as an adult that you would need to survive and be a prominent adult and live the life that you hopefully would like to live. Second is funding. And not just funding necessarily for the schools, but for the teachers. Again, being from Baltimore, I was able to go to a nice magnet school. My mom fought like hell, moving around. We move every couple years, just trying to get into every decent little school we can get into. And I'm glad she did because it worked out for us. But a lot of people, a lot of my neighbors, a lot of my friends and people who live in the same environment didn't necessarily have that same privilege or the same blessing in a sense. The schools don't have much funding from the teachers. Teachers are coming out of their pocket to provide pencils, provide supplies and resources for the kids, when the school should be doing that. The city should be doing that. The state should be doing that. Me as a teacher, my job is to teach and educate in the best way possible. I can't do that if I'm constantly have to keep funding teaching. This is not my job. My job is to teach, not to fund it. And I think and I have friends now who graduated college with me who are in the teaching world, and I'm seeing them doing the same thing. And I see the stories and I see the struggles of having to teach from behind the 8 ball, where it's hard to, and they teach in inner city schools because they wanted to go back and make those schools better because they knew the certain teachers that impacted their life and they want to impact other people's lives, but they're not given the resources to do so. And I know, laws and all that good stuff is around property taxes and all that good stuff to make sure your schools are funded correctly. But we have to make sure that in places where property taxes aren't high, where people don't own their homes, which tends to be inner city places for the most part, predominantly black places, predominantly black areas, we have additional funding to those places where teachers can actually teach in the best way possible so the schools and the students can have the best education. But again, that's not always the case. And as far as the third thing, I think we need to have classes that trigger thought. I had a class in college to this day. Me and my friend was talking about it a few days ago because we just remember one of the things that our teachers told us. She said something that always would stick with me. She said, "You're your ancestors' wildest dreams." And it took me a while to really understand that. And it brought me to tears because she's right. The knowledge where we're at today is because ancestors fought for that. The ability to get a college education, to start a career, our ancestors fought for that. So when it comes to education, we need to have classes that trigger thought, that have conversations that people are uncomfortable to have. A lot of white people, or a lot of the non-black people, or whatever it is, they don't want to have these conversations a lot of times, and they're not being forced to. We're not in the classrooms where that conversation is being facilitated, where we're thinking about it, we're talking, we're understanding each other's empathy, we're telling our stories. You don't always have that. To this day, that's the only class I've ever had when every student in that class cried on the same day. I'm talking 21, 23, 19-year-olds crying, not out of pain, but just out of enjoyment of a class. Like, we had an exercise that brought everybody to tears. We need more of that. Understand everybody's culture, understand everybody's experience, and you realize that the world is outside of your bubble. The real world is out there. Get out of your bubble, understand what everybody else is going through. And I think when you have that, people have better knowledge on people's experiences, they can empathize better, and we can move forward as a people better because we get each other, we understand each other. When you don't understand each other and your experiences, that's when you have the crazy thoughts and think people are saying the wildest and most disrespectful things because a lot of times they don't know any better, right? And there's some people who are just ignorant and have hate in their heart, but there's a good amount of the population who just don't know. And when we don't have those conversations in our schools and our education systems, how do we expect them to do well in life? Where else are they going to get it from? Where else in your life are you going to have that sit-down conversation where you can talk about those things? Nowhere else. So I think we definitely need to change that. Black history wasn't much in our schools. It was Martin Luther King, the usual. Everybody knows about Martin Luther King. You know about Rosa Parks. And every now and then, certain classes would touch on Frederick Douglass. Outside of that, that's it. Nobody talks about Marcus Garvey. Nobody talks about Madam C.J. Walker, the first millionaire black woman. Like, nobody doesn't talk about that. There's more to our history than just slavery. That's all we hear, but we don't talk about the Egyptians and how the world was created and how the contributions of black people have made to the world overall, from inventions to businesses to overall communities. We don't ever talk about those. We talk about those three people: Martin, Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, every now and then, and that's it. We need to talk about the entire black history. We're gonna have black history classes or Black History Month. Make sure you teach them the entire history. Make sure the black kids growing up know that there's more to them than just slavery. There's more to you than fighting civil rights. There's black millionaires out there. There's business owners. There's politicians. Teach them about that. Teach them about the experiences that we have and everything, not just the sad parts. All slavery does when you have those conversations is bring people to tears, people cry, but people feel beneath them. You feel like you're less than. That's all you learn about your history, that, we must be less than. That's not true. That's only a little part of our history. We need to expand the entire history and teach people. People don't only see themselves from other people that have already came before them. So if I don't see the millionaires, I don't see the politicians, if I don't see the engineers and the doctors who have paved the way, how do I expect to ever be that? If I've never seen it before, what do we see? Athletes? We all want to be football players, basketball players. That's all we see. That's what is glorified. We don't glorify the doctors and the educators. So we need to do a little bit more of that to let the entire community know, one, there's more opportunities out here than just being an athlete. And two, we're contributing to the world in great ways, and we need to make sure we celebrate that. Diversity, again, in the workforce has always been a tricky thing because it's advertised as we want to be diverse, but it tends to a lot of times doesn't allocate that diversity or those funds to us, the black folks, the black men and women in certain industries. It's, oh no, we want to be diverse, but I'd rather get a male Asian or white female, technically minorities. So when it comes to that, is the classifications of it are very segmented, and we're still left out. Even though it's always advertised as, oh, black people are gonna have more opportunities and diversity and things of that nature. We're gonna hire them to, to make sure they have a nice culture. People like to throw that word around, great culture in our environment, but it's not really the reality. You're not hiring everybody. People see your name, my name, I'm Nigerian. People see my name and automatically scares them. I have to get on the phone. When I go on interviews, I make sure I try to get on the phone and put on my best white voice possible. I have to code switch all the time because I have to make sure to let them know, hey, I'm not scary. I'm not what you think. I'm not a thug. I'm not this and that. I'm an educated man, and I always want a simple opportunity. So it's the diversity thing. It's, again, ideally it sounds good, but tends to not work out for us. Code switching is something I didn't even know was a thing until I got to the class in college and the teachers was speaking about it, like, this is what you're doing. And I didn't realize I was doing it because that's just the way that was the way things have been done. Everybody around me, I saw how they talk differently when they're in a room full of white people and want to make them comfortable, or they're going for an interview. They have to say certain things and talk a certain way to not seem scary. And I've always done it. Again, I went to a predominantly white college, and I'm there on campus. I have to make sure I'm smiling and look high and this and that because I don't make anybody feel uncomfortable. Because the minute I just kind of relax and do myself and be on my own or talk to my friends the way we talk to each other, it's, oh, you're like that. Like, no, I'm a person. I have personality, I have experiences, I can talk to certain people a certain way, but I have to constantly code switch to not scare anybody, to let them know I'm okay to hire, I'm okay to talk to, I'm okay to be around, I'm not a scary person. It's sad because a lot of people in our communities have to code switch. A lot of times we don't even know we're code switching. It's just so much embedded into our society from generation to generation. You see your parents do it, your grandparents do it. It's just a way of survival, survival tactic. You want to live and survive and hopefully prosper, you got to make the majority happy. So by default, you switch up the way you talk or the way you dress in certain places or things of that nature because you have to kind of hide your culture a little bit to make everybody else feel comfortable. I've definitely heard that argument a lot of, you have Barack, you have Oprah out there, you have LeBron, Michael Jordan celebrated and loved, and those are a handful of people. Black people, I believe, is 13% of this population of America. How many of us are actually living above the poverty line? How many of us are in corporate America and have executive jobs, are actually making laws? How many of us are in politics in the sense where we're actually changing laws? Not a lot of us. So every now and then when you get a few people that kind of stand out and make it in a sense, it's, oh, you're good, you're happy now. That's not even a quarter of 1% of our population. Every now and then, people are gonna do, or they're gonna survive and get out there and do great things. That doesn't represent the vast majority of people who are just still struggling to be seen as human beings. Doesn't represent everybody's reality, and I think that's why we give so much love and admiration to the LeBron James and Oprahs and Barack, because there's not a lot of us up there. There's not a lot of us doing things that we actually want to do and being celebrated for it. So every time we get a chance to be in those positions, it's a little bit of a win for us. Like, we made it somewhere. That's not the vast majority of our population. A lot of us are still being oppressed, or everybody, we're all still being oppressed in different ways. And just because you have money, same thing with LeBron James, just because you have money, people still spray the N-word or in front of his gate in a house in California. No matter how rich you are, you're still just a black man in this country. So just because we have a few people who are doing well, doesn't mean the vast majority of people have the same opportunities as everybody else. In our communities, we don't always have that. Again, being a black entrepreneur, a young black entrepreneur, and I'm talking to other entrepreneurs and other black folks who are in business, and it tends to be that way. We don't tend to see the scale factor, right? We don't tend to see, oh, it can be bigger than this. It's, you have a little business because you're just trying to survive, eat, and provide for yourself. We don't think about building that generational wealth. And a lot of it is because we don't know about it. We don't know how to scale. We're not getting funding to open a second store or a third store and do this and do that. We're not getting investors coming in and saying, hey, I like what you're doing here. Let me help you make things a little bit better for you. We're not getting a lot of that. So a lot of times when people grow up and you see your grandparents have a little, corner store here and there, you think that's it. They have the store, they have the little business, that's it. There's so much more. I'm learning about entrepreneurship and venture capitalism and all that good stuff, and I'm seeing a lot of us don't get funding. I forgot the stat, but it was less than like 5% of venture capitalist money went to actually black entrepreneurs. We're not being supported in that way either, where on an economic standpoint, where a lot of problems are rooted, we're not given those opportunities to scale and to grow and have wealth so we can provide for our communities, so we can continue to make our communities better. So if we can't provide for our communities and the city or the state is not providing for our communities, who will? And that's, again, comes back to the root of the problem is the opportunities aren't there to expand, the knowledge isn't there, and we are not being taught any of that stuff. We just kind of have to figure it out and hope for the best. As far as the communities and creating a better community for people of color and families of color to feel safe and be a part, it's the little things that you do, right? It's me walking down the street at night and I see a white lady walking her dog, she immediately goes across the street. Or the fact that I have to take my hoodie off when it's cold outside at night and I'm walking back from Turkey Hill, but I know me walking my gray hoodie or black hoodie, I have to take it off because I don't want to scare anybody. The little things that we have to go through, the realities, or the side looks when you have your friends over, or you play music in your car and everybody's giving you the look of, what are you doing here? Or you have a family get together and people are coming over and somebody's complaining. Oh, but when they have families over, nobody says anything. It's those little things of people reminding you that you don't belong here. So, I mean, what we need to do is call those little things out and stop doing it. We need the majority, again, the white communities who are where these people of color trying to live in certain communities that are majority, they're a minority in. We need the majorities in those communities to call that out, to have those conversations and go out of their way to make the people of color feel comfortable. Because only so much we can do. Me just being here, living in a community surrounded by those who don't look like me, I'm just trying to make sure I don't fit the description. I'm just trying to make sure I keep it moving. I'm nice to everybody where people have a good relationship with me, but that doesn't change how you perceive me. So what we need to do is have the majority of the people in those areas talk to each other. Hey, this is wrong. You don't do that. That's wrong. You don't make those comments. And hold themselves accountable and treat each other with respect. We're also one community. At the end of the day, we're all still paying taxes. We all live here. So make it feel like we all live here. If you really want to be in an inclusive society, make them feel inclusive. Because I know if roles were reversed, it wouldn't feel so good. It wouldn't feel so good at all. Treat other people the same way you want to be treated. With respect. That's it. Treat people with respect and love and admiration, and things can get along. It's that simple. I mean, even, I guess, the George Floyd, the video overall, just the impact that had. And I've had lots of conversations with my friends and family members, and seeing that video, a lot of people were surprised. As much pain, and that video brought tears to my eyes, a part of me was like, it's another video. Because the vast majority of people in this world, or at least in America, they haven't seen that before, quote unquote. I've seen it. Year after year, I see it. Day after day, I see those videos. I see a black man or black woman laying down there, kids in park, having a kid playing in the park, and 2 seconds later, he's dead. For what? And continuing to see that is traumatic, and it hurts so much. And having those conversations, I have friends that don't want to look at social media anymore. I have friends who are activists, like legit activists, who needed a break, just because there was just so much. How much can you possibly take of constantly seeing yourself? That's what you're seeing. When I saw George Floyd, I saw my uncle, I saw myself, I saw my brother who's about to have a baby. That's scary. I don't want my mother to have that conversation. I don't want somebody calling my mom saying, your son is in the middle of the street laying down. And it's just, if you don't get it by now, I just don't know what else to say. I just don't know any more examples that people of color, our community, our black community needs to say to get you to understand this is the way we've been treated. It's been like this for decades and generations, over hundreds of years. It has to change. It has to change. Because at the end of the day, we're part of the community. Whether you like it or not, we're part of the community. So the pain that we feel, it should be the same pain that you feel. Because it's not always the same, and to everybody who is good amount of people who are still against the movement or who wants to make the movement about the flag, and it's not about that. It's about the video you saw, about that man going to the store that day and not realizing it was going to be his last day on earth. Last time he gets to see his friends and his family. Never get a chance to hug his family and friends again. That's what it's about. And for a lot of people in this world, that's the reality. When you leave your house and you come back home, it's like a blessing. You celebrate that for the day I made it home. I'm good. I'm here. And just that pain, and we need to have a conversation. We need to, especially people of color, we need psychologists, psychiatrists, safe spaces. We need a place to just talk and kind of unpack everything, because it's traumatic. When you continuously see something like that and experience things of that nature, that stays with you for generations. That's not something I want to pass down. I don't want to pass down that trauma. And this is continuous trauma for hundreds and hundreds of years that generations are dealing with, seeing themselves as having no value in this world. There's nothing worse than that your life doesn't matter. And that's what you're being told when you see those videos. And I just hope that every person of color who's seen that video, who've seen several videos, have some type of help, get some type of psychiatrist to talk to us, unpack certain things, because that's not something we should have to keep internalizing, because that grows. And you see the anger, you see the pain, it's looting and rioting today. Tomorrow it could be something different. We don't want to get to that, like, something different, because there's only so much pain and anger somebody will have. They have to let it out some way. So I'm just hoping that we have better ways to let that anger and that pain out, so we don't pass that down. And that's just my goal for my community. I just want us to come together, talk about our experiences, and find ways to continue to move forward mentally, because it's so big. It's tiring. It's mentally exhausting to keep dealing with and to keep seeing. And that limits everything you do. If you don't feel like you have any value, what's my motivation to do well in life? What's my motivation to have kids? What's my motivation to get education or build a business or do whatever it is if I don't feel like it matters anyway? And that's at the root. We got to find a way to dismantle the systematic oppression and find a way to just cope with ourselves and unpack these pains and this trauma and continue to move forward.